Let's go. Don't waste your life, man. Don't waste your life, man.
Hello, I'm Tepera at the Dekeday Foundation. We appreciate you joining us for our Student of the Week, Stephen Morris. Stephen has a special... We chose Stephen because he has a special gift and challenge. Stephen is deaf. He is here today to help us understand the life of a deaf teenager. Growing up and going to public places and schools. Alright, Stephen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How old are you?
I'm 16.
16. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have two. I have one sister. Her name is Maureen. And one brother. His name is Jimmy.
What school do you attend and what grade?
Right now, I am a sophomore, and I go to school at Clear Springs High School.
How are your grades?
They're really good, but math class, that one is really easy for me. And ASL also, that's really easy.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm taking beginner ASL and I also think it's a really cool class. Well, tell us, how do students and teachers treat you?
Well, really, I noticed that the deaf people, they're kind of like to themselves. They don't hang out with themselves. They don't really hang out with hearing people. So I try to encourage the deaf people to kind of spread out and hang out with new friends that are hearing and teach the hearing people that want to learn ASL. We, the deaf people that know sign, we can teach them. And so, for me it's normal. I always hang out with hearing people. Deaf ed class, I enjoy that. There's not really nothing bad about that. No bad influence or anything. Everything is good.
That's good. Do you have like an interpreter during class?
Oh yeah, all my classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I require an interpreter.
Do you know how many deaf kids are at your school?
Like somewhere around 20 or like 25. It's really small, not a lot.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been deaf?
14 years.
So 14 years being deaf, how old were you and how did this happen?
Whenever I was born and I was a baby, I was hearing. I could hear, but I didn't know exactly what was being said. But whenever I was 2, I got sick and I had a fever, and then I became deaf. So from then on, my whole life, been deaf. But I really like being deaf.
Yeah, when I was young, I used to be 70% deaf myself. Well, tell us your challenges.
Really?
Yeah, I was learning sign language when I was a little kid. But are there any advantages of being deaf?
I really like whenever I'm taking care of babies, they're crying, I can't hear them. Or whenever I'm working, building a house or whatever, all the men, they have to wear like the things for the ears because the annoying noise of the tools. So I don't have to do that. I don't have to use those things that block out the sound from the tools.
That's good. Are you involved with any groups or organizations for deaf people? And if so, tell us about it.
Yeah, whatever, everything, Well, I have, wait, I have one, I think. Oh, okay, when, every Friday, let me back up. 3 weeks, every Friday, we go to the mall for a deaf social, every month. And silent dinner, hanging out with people who know ASL from this area in the schools. We go to a silent dinner for whatever people that know ASL sign at the mall, or at the silent dinner at the restaurant. We sit, we chat, hang out, whatever.
Yeah, my sign language teacher tells us about that and tells us we should go and just so we can get used to all that sign language.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What type of hobbies do you have?
I really love wrestling. I like wrestling. It's more fun.
That's good. How cool. You must be in pretty good shape. Are you on a team for wrestling?
Yeah.
Are you competing in it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Soon we're going to start the wrestling season.
That's good. Well, that's pretty cool. You know what you want to do when you're out of high school? College? Out of college?
It's his degree. My goal is to be a teacher. Like teach math or ASL and coach wrestling. I really want to coach wrestling.
Yeah. Well, Steven, you seem to be a really cool kid, and I'm glad that we have an opportunity to become friends. The Dekeday Foundation is proud to have you as our Student of the Week. Gentlemen.
Hello, I'm David Tepera of the Dekeday Foundation. The second half portion of this video is to help families who might have deaf children or other students who might have deaf classmates get a better understanding. With us here today is one of Steven's guardians, Amanda Mason, and she also happens to be an ASL teacher at Clear Falls High School. Amanda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get started. This might be kind of a common sense question, but what is really one of the earliest signs a family might notice that their child has a hearing issue?
So now, thanks to technology, we have the ability to detect hearing impairments much earlier on in infants. If you see that your child is not responding to you early on, that could be a number of different factors, and it could be nothing. But I think it would be worth having an audiogram conducted on your infant to see if everything's working correctly physically.
Okay, so an audiogram.
Audiogram.
Okay, so let's take it to that scenario.
Okay.
Let's say your child is deaf.
Okay.
However that became. So at a very early age, I mean, there has to be some really learning challenges in life. So tell us what now for families.
Well, it's not the end of the world. I think that's the most important thing is there is a grieving process that parents tend to go through. I've worked with a lot of parents that have deaf infants, and there's this almost like a death, because it's kind of a death to what you thought your child was going to be like, but it's not a death, and it's not the end of the world. And so once you get a medical diagnosis, the medical system is very good at kind of shuffling you through the processes medically. And so it directs you in this one path, but I think what's really important for parents to know early on is that there's so many different paths that you can take. Once you have a diagnosis and you have the what now question, the answer isn't always medically fix it. The answer could be anything that's right for your family. And so you might choose to go the way of medically attempting to correct or aid the hearing disability, which would look like cochlear implants, which Stephen had a cochlear implant at one point in time, or hearing aids to get your child to have auditory input as early on as they possibly can. But that's not the only option. The other option would be to learn sign language yourself, to teach sign language to your baby, and to raise them in a home that's bilingual, both English and American Sign Language. I think the most important thing, though, is whatever you choose it, and be 100% committed to it.
Well, okay, so earlier Stephen told us there's like 20 deaf kids at Clear Springs High School, and he said to him that was not that many. I was kind of surprised to hear that there was that many. So is there interpreter, did they kind of try to keep most deaf kids in certain grades together and use one interpreter in class, or is there a private interpreter for each one?
No, I wish there was a private interpreter for each one. That would be fantastic, but that's just not monetarily, possible. Well, what Stephen attends is actually called Galveston-Brazoria Co-op for the hearing impaired. All of the schools in Galveston and Brazoria Co-op, or Galveston-Brazoria County, gather together and send their students to one location. For us, it's Clear Creek Independent School District, and they go to a certain elementary school, a certain middle school, and a certain high school, and they kind of stay together through all of those years.
Okay, well, Mandy, I'm going to ask you a question that Dylan asked Stephen,
Okay.
but from a ASL teacher's perspective.
Okay.
I mean, what advice can you give other students who have deaf kids in their class? How do they respond? And another thing as well, when people speak to a deaf person, can they speak directly to them? And what would be polite and what's rude?
Oh yes, it's a very common question on etiquette. Well, first of all, they're just like you. I know you probably get tired of hearing that, but they're just like you. Stephen is athletic and intelligent and
Yeah, we've learned that.
incredibly sarcastic and very funny, and so he's very much like anybody else, except for he is deaf, and so that linguistic barrier sometimes makes people afraid, and they don't want to approach because they don't want to look like an idiot. They don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing, and so I think that's really important is if a deaf student has an interpreter with them, that you go up and you look at the deaf student and you talk to them, knowing that they're not going to look at you. They're going to look at the interpreter to find out what you're saying, but then when they answer you, they'll probably look back at you and the interpreter will voice for them. It's strange for hearing people to hear sound coming from a different location than what you asked the question to, but that's the polite thing to do, and it's more polite than saying, will you tell him, would you tell him, would you tell her? It's much kinder to treat them as an equal by saying, you know, hi, like, did you get the math question on number 17, or whatever the question might be.
Right, okay.
And don't be afraid to reach out and to make friends, because it's so important for any student to feel like they're included and that they're a part of a classroom and part of a community, and it could start with you. So
Absolutely. Well, that's really good advice. You've been very good, and we really thank you for helping us have a greater understanding and realizing that so many deaf kids are incorporated in our schools. There's resources and programs. There's no need for families to panic or be depressed.
right.
I mean, we see Stephen's a really energetic kid, and seems to be really cool. So, CCISD is really fortunate to have people like you involved in our schools, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, and remember, as always, be responsible, be safe. Thank you.